tonight, OceanGate is painted as a company that avoided restrictive regulations, taking part in trials that ended in disaster.
We're trying to create a financial model that allows us to find a way of funding oceanographic research.
Research that came at a great cost. More red flags and warning signs today at the inquiry into the Titan tragedy.
If people are not well educated about the histories and cultures of Indigenous peoples in the province, then they're not going to be well positioned to advance truth and reconciliation.
First Light says the provincial government has stalled on major calls to action when it comes to reconciliation. We'll have more from its latest report.
It can be a very prosperous community.
We can still have that balance between the economy and conservation.
The idea that we just let it slowly die, I don't think is good enough. I don't think it's fair to the people.
A group in Burgeo has long believed this provincial park deserves federal protection, but the process hasn't been easy.
This is CBC Here and Now.
Good evening and welcome to Here and Now. We begin with the inquiry into the Titan tragedy. The Titan submersible was built using unacceptable material. That expert testimony was heard today at the inquiry in South Carolina. And as Here and Now's Heather Gillis reports, the American Coast Guard also heard from OceanGate's co-founder about the business and money behind deep-sea diving.
You solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help
Guillermo Sonlin, an early co-founder of OceanGate, there on the stand at the U.S. Coast Guard hearings into the Titan implosion. He testified the company's vision was to create a fleet of deep diving subs that could carry 5 people anywhere. Sonlin, who left OceanGate in 2013, says they never intended to build their own subs and that buying them would come at a great financial cost. He also says regulations in U.S. waters were restrictive, so paying passengers were designated mission specialists and the Titan sub an ocean research vessel.
And researchers within the ORV, if I remember correctly, was defined broadly enough that it could include people who were in training and people who were learning or people who were assisting a researcher.
Meanwhile, engineer Roy Thomas, educated at Memorial University, testified about Titan's carbon fiber. Thomas now works for the American Bureau of Shipping. The group classes marine vessels, a rigorous process. They didn't oversee the Titan submersible, but Thomas says carbon fiber is not an approved material. Under extreme pressure, he says, carbon fiber can snap in less than a millisecond.
So if you have sensors for real-time monitoring, it will not pick up any signs of this failure before it occurs. Okay?
Thomas says classed vessels come with stringent safety rules. Titan would have required expert inspection after its dome fell off, and another one when it made a loud bang, like an explosion, after resurfacing. Without classification, OceanGate avoided both.
This is a dangerous business. Yeah, you dive under the water, there is extreme external pressure. So you should not be taking any risk.
Today, more images of the deadly wreck, a map. At the bottom of the North Atlantic, pieces of the submersible spread across 200 meters of the sea floor. Meanwhile, engineering director Phil Brooks testified earlier tests of Titan's hull also ended in implosion.
And all of a sudden we could see the strain start to move, and we could see the AE just go nuts, and then followed by an ear-splitting bang that was, ringing in the ears, and pretty catastrophic failure.
Another day of red flags at the Titan inquiry. That engineer said that Titan should have been stored in a controlled environment, not on a St. John's dock over winter with freeze-thaw cycles and UV rays that could have damaged its hull. Heather Gillis, CBC News, St. John's.
The Indigenous Advocacy Coalition First Light has released a report on truth and reconciliation in Newfoundland and Labrador. Here Now's Mark Quinn has more on some of the positive changes being made and where it says the province is still falling short.
The City of St. John's has been making changes to address truth and reconciliation, like naming the June municipal holiday from Discovery Day to National Indigenous Peoples Day. First Light's Justin Campbell began with that.
So we've seen some very strong and promising support from the city in this area.
However, First Light says it is hitting roadblocks when it calls for changes from the province. The coalition says curriculum for K-12 students must be reformed to include more about Indigenous histories and cultures. Campbell says the Education Department has been too slow to act.
They were unable to point to any specific developments that had happened in not only the last 18 months, but even in the last 5 years.
The province's Minister for Indigenous Affairs and Reconciliation was at today's event and responded to questions about what's taught in schools.
There are certainly improvements that we can make, and I think there's some processes that are already in place in terms of doing that, and I want to follow up with officials in the department to see exactly what's being done.
2 years ago, the coalition released a report calling for an independent, civilian-led police oversight board to make police more accountable to the public. First Light is concerned that the province hasn't committed to making that change yet. Reid says he supports the idea of a police oversight board.
Yes, I think there should be a police oversight board, and I know that there's been some discussion with the former Minister of Justice on those matters, and I'm going to follow up with those issues.
Like the previous Justice Minister, Reid stopped short of saying the province is committed to making that change. The 100-page report is full of details about steps that need to be taken to work towards reconciliation. It's a heavy subject, but at today's event there was still room for some joy.
Well, Choices for Youth wants to offer support for more rural parts of the province. A youth service hub is a one-stop shop providing food, shelter support, and access to health professionals. One already exists in St. John's, but as Here and Now's Arlette Lazarenko has learned, many of the young people served there aren't from the capital city.
On the floor above this press conference, there is a center, a hub of support.
A young person can come through our doors upstairs and access a hot meal, internet, and basic needs. While they eat their meal, they can wait a few moments to see our on-site physicians.
Choices for Youth says its St. John's Integrated Youth Service Hub serves 1,300 people each year. Now, along with NL Health Services, it's looking to open 2 more in rural parts of the province at locations yet to be determined. It's issuing a request for proposals, asking nonprofits, charities, Indigenous communities and groups, municipalities, and post-secondary institutions to pitch themselves and their communities as potential partners. It's because Choices estimates about a quarter of the young it serves in St. John's aren't actually from the area.
Those young people overwhelmingly don't come to St. John's because they want to, but because they feel that they have no choice, because the services that they need are not available in their home community.
Last month, Choices for Youth was shocked with a $16 million shortfall in federal funding. It laid off 16 employees, closed 2 of its social enterprises. But Crow says this plan to expand is safe because the initiative is funded by the province. But provincial money won't cover all the operating costs, so having financial support and feet on the ground will be a key factor in deciding where the hubs crop up, and communities will have a say in the issues that matter most.
So they may say, listen, we don't have an emergency shelter here, that's our priority. Listen, we don't have mental health supports that are catered specifically to young people, that's our priority. Or we don't have supports for young moms, that's our priority. And we really encourage that kind of catered approach to service delivery in these regions, because ultimately we aren't the experts in these regions. Those folks are.
Proposals will be accepted until November 15 and will be reviewed before the end of the year. Arlette Lazarenko, CBC News, St. John's.
A Well-Being Week is underway with hundreds of events planned throughout the province. The intent is to encourage people to take individual action when it comes to our health and quality of life. Today, the provincial government joined in on that effort, with Premier Andrew Furey declaring Newfoundland and Labrador as Canada's first well-being province during an event at the Colonial Building.
We want you and everyone in government to think about health in a more fulsome way. Your physical health, yes, that's incredibly important. Your mental health, equally important. Your social health, your family and friends and community, important. Your economic health, important. Your environmental health, important. And by looking at all of those facets and components of health, we're really capturing your well-being. And my government will definitely continue to take your well-being as the top #1 priority in everything we do.
Well, it's not hard to find the beauty in the coastal communities along the southwest coast of Newfoundland and Labrador, like here in Burgeo, next to the Sandbanks Provincial Park. And there's one group here that really want to put this place and the water surrounding it on the national stage by making it a National Marine Conservation Area. But this doesn't happen overnight. It's actually been decades in the making. Let me explain.
This is Barbara Barter. She started looking into conserving and protecting the marine area surrounding Burgeo 23 years ago, pushing for the federal designation. She believes that kind of recognition from Parks Canada could boost tourism and jobs while protecting endangered birds and puffins, killer whales, leatherback turtles, and sunfish. And she hopes it could potentially stop the community from dying out.
Burgeo is worth being sustained. You know, it's a beautiful community. It's had centuries of history of the fishery, and not only of the fishery, but also of, you know, European ancestry, but in particular as well, First Nations and ancestry. And, you know, it can be a very prosperous community. And so the idea that we just let it slowly die, I don't think is good enough. I don't think it's fair to the people who have spent, you know, most of their lives here. And so it's, I think it's worth looking for alternate ways to use our ocean. Because, I mean, we're surrounded by water, and salt water at that, and that has been the lifeblood of the people. And so I think it's important to not only save that for them, but also to save it for those who come after us.
While her mission is to protect this, most of the work looks like this: steering committees, meeting with government and Indigenous groups, and convincing Parks Canada they need this designation now. For her, it means possible enhancements to the popular Sandbanks Park and its beaches, new visitor centers, national research studies, along with new forms of industry that could support the people here and maybe even attract new people to the area.
While some of the benefits, of course, are easy to see, there's a lot of questions around the barriers that come along with such a national designation. On a local level, there's questions about accessing their cabin, berry picking, or getting their annual moose. And of course, big questions around the industry that depends on that water.
That's where Melissa Mills comes in. She is the link between the project and the community. The biggest barrier is big industry.
Yeah, right now we are really working with our stakeholder engagements to talk with these companies, these organizations, to be able to work together in the name of conservation, where we can still have that balance between the economy and conservation.
So what exactly has to happen to get this national designation? Well, Parks Canada is currently visiting communities all along this area, conducting public town hall meetings. Parks Canada is also asking everybody and anybody to fill out a public survey on their thoughts and submit it by October 6th. Next, all parties involved have to come up with the exact boundary for this area. Now, none of these things seem to happen very quickly, but there are some deadlines set for the early new year. Colleen Connors, CBC News, Burgeo.
Well, the Fogo Island Inn may have just gotten even more exclusive.
You really are awarded it. There's no way for you to get it without putting in the hard work and really, you know, being judged excellent.
Fogo is one of just 2 hotels in the country to receive 3 Michelin keys, and that recognizes hotels offering an outstanding stay. The rating guide was made popular by its restaurant counterpart, the Star System. Michelin key hotels are judged on multiple categories, including architecture and interior design, quality and consistency of service, and value for the price. We return to Fogo Island a little later in the show for more on what the Michelin distinction means for the local luxury business. The annual Red Shoe Crew Walk, organized by the Ronald McDonald House, plays a crucial role in funding services for families with sick children. The event was held Saturday in more than 40 communities across the province, and it happened just as the St. John Centre hit a milestone, 50,000 nights for more than 2,000 families.
This is our largest fundraising event, and on average raises approximately $250,000 every year. And with a $1.5 million operating budget for Ronald McDonald House, this is a very significant fundraising event. We just hit a very significant milestone. So our Ronald McDonald House is 12 years old, but we just reached 50,000 nights of comfort and care provided to families. And with the estimated cost of being away from home, staggering over $500 a day now, it's estimated that Ronald McDonald House has saved those families more than $9 million. We are monitoring our wait list to make sure that we're meeting the need, but at times, we just cannot support every family that needs us. So all the support that's here at these fundraising events will enable us to be able to support every family.
It's very emotional, seeing the support that we get from different corporate sponsors, but then also seeing the support from the little kids that are going door to door and collecting donations is it's hard to explain how great that feels. It's just, seeing it and then knowing that it's going to such an important cause is pretty incredible. When a child is diagnosed with a severe illness and their whole world is turned upside down and they're being rushed into St. John's sometimes with nothing other than the clothes they have on their back, then they're worrying about, oh, we're here for so long, what am I going to do now? And hearing that there's a house just across the street that's very close to the hospital for them so they can stay close to their child, that is probably one of the most important parts in the healing process for them.
Having the support of Ronald McDonald House has not only alleviated financial struggles for families, but it's also alleviated psychological circumstances for children that are sick or siblings in the family. The families can be together, and when a child is hospitalized, it can be very traumatic to feel that separation from mom and dad. But I've heard kids say, "It's okay, Mom, I've seen you walk across the street to the Ronald McDonald House."
Well, how might artificial intelligence start cropping up in the classroom? And how is the province preparing for it? That story's still to come.
Well, that old saying, if you don't like the weather, wait 5 minutes. That has definitely been the story through the weekend, and most of this week will feature that as well. I'll get into all the details coming up.
Ashley, fall is here, and I can see from the background there the leaves falling. You're getting in the mood for it. Definitely cooler, but that's to be expected.
That's right. Yeah, we turned a corner. I don't know about you, but my flowers are still very much blooming.
Yes, me too.
It's still pretty nice out there. I think things are going to change, obviously, as we get into and settle into some of this cooler air. But I wanted to show you a really great picture of some sunflowers. They're still blooming. And take a look at this photo. So great. First day of fall. This is what Heather's sunflowers look like. She's gonna making some smiley faces there. Is great. Definitely, some of us definitely saw some sunshine yesterday. Really, we've still seen some scattered drizzle, patchy drizzle in there as well, and it's all thanks to the current pattern that we're in. It's been sticking around and has stuck around through the weekend, and we're going to continue to talk about that over the next couple of days as well. Live look outside right now. It said goodbye to the fog, which is nice. Actually, today was pretty decent. Temperatures were sitting around 13 degrees at the moment. There is a bit of a northwest wind out there, 22 kilometers per hour. No gusts. And if we take a look at the winds across the province as well, we are seeing Twillingate sustained winds at about 43 kilometers per hour. You get away from that northerly flow, though, winds are a lot less. 17 in Port aux Basques, 26 in Burgeo, 9 in St. Lawrence. And again, not really a whole lot of gusts out there. Cartwright, you're seeing some winds gusting around 35 kilometers per hour. Now, if we take a look at the temperatures today, that area of low pressure just offshore, driving those temperatures down. Single digits. Twillingate, 9 degrees today. Same thing for Lassie, 11 in Bonavista. And like I said, about 13 degrees in St. John's. But you get away from that onshore flow, it's pretty nice. 17 to 19 degrees, even up across Labrador, Lab City, 16 degrees at the moment. And there's that area of low pressure that I was talking about. So we see counterclockwise rotation over areas of low pressure. That is what is bringing the areas of cloud cover and drizzle right along with it. And unfortunately, it's not in a hurry to move. So we are going to continue to see this pattern over the next couple of days. In fact, really for the majority of the week. Now, like it was through the weekend, it is still going to be fairly decent in some cases. The sun's still going to come out, but just unsettled really is the word. You get away from that though, lots of sunshine for the southwest coast, even up across parts of Labrador as well. Where it isn't, where it's a bit more unsettled, I should say, is the tropics. And we're starting to talk about another system. Right now it's called Potential Tropical Cyclone 9. This will likely be our next tropical storm or hurricane, and it will be called Helene if and when it does develop. But just keeping an eye on this one for now. It is going to head through the Yucatan or next to the Yucatan Peninsula and then eventually head towards Florida as a possible Category 2 hurricane. And the time frame will be as we head into Wednesday and into Thursday. All of my stuff got discombobbled there, but we are looking at winds potentially topping out around 185 kilometers per hour. So right now, well, that's why it happened, because it just updated the forecast. So potential to see a Category 3 hurricane in the Big Bend region of Florida. So if you're planning on heading to Florida, definitely keep an eye on the forecast over the next couple of days. Now, closer to home. That area of low pressure, again, just going to be our weather maker for the next couple of days. Nothing overly impressive as far as the weather goes, but still seeing those areas of cloud cover. Expected some showers moving in for Lab West. And as far as temperatures go, overall single digits for most of us, except St. John's. You should hover around 11 degrees. Now, as we head into tomorrow, again, some scattered cloud cover up across Labrador. For the most part, fairly quiet, except towards the southeast. And most of the island will be under some cloud cover with some peaks of sun through the day as well. And again, we can't rule out the chance of seeing some of those showers as well. Overall, daytime highs will sit in the low to mid-teens for most of us with those northerly winds around 20 to 40 kilometers per hour. You get away from that, 15 to 18 degrees through the day for the southwest, looking lovely, and up across Labrador as well. We'll talk about the long range coming up.
It hasn't taken AI long to go from science fiction to a real-life tool in business, technology, healthcare, and now, maybe, in schools. Just like everywhere else in the country, the Newfoundland and Labrador government is working on how AI fits into the school system. And it's going to have to answer some tough questions, like where and how it's used. The Education Department says it's working on a policy now, and in the coming months will issue some guidelines. The department says those guidelines will include learning resources for teachers that focus on building AI literacy and user safety. But the department refused to talk about any of that. So we went elsewhere to get an idea of what an AI policy should look like and what kind of balance that policy needs to have.
Trying to prevent its use is not going to be very fruitful. The trick now is how to use it in such a way that it is ethical, responsible, and promotes teaching and learning.
Rahul Kumar studies generative AI and how it's affecting education. He says it's completely uprooted long-standing traditions.
Obviously, the big elephant in the room, the student privacy and data, in terms of how the third parties, et cetera, are going to be using it. We don't know those details. So what are the directions that are offered as far as that is concerned? Students are more than likely going to use it at home. How is that going to work? What sort of supports are needed at that stage? Teachers would need, especially in K-12, time to experiment with these technologies to see how they could be integrated into their curriculum and assessment, etc.
Now, on top of all that, there are other things for the government to consider, like how it monitors AI in schools, how it enforces the rules it creates, and how those rules stay relevant as technology changes. There is a lot to hash out, but Kumar says that the use of AI in schools like ChatGPT shouldn't be seen as a negative. He says educators have an obligation to prepare students for the future, which will inevitably include AI.
If students are going to be using it once they graduate in the workforce, they need to be able to learn how to use it effectively.
Kumar says it's important for governments like ours to get guidelines in place soon, so we can start teaching children about AI at a younger age and help them build positive habits for the future. Alex Kennedy, CBC News, Corner Brook.
Well, you may be familiar with Michelin stars. They're the most prestigious honor a restaurant can get. Only the best of the best restaurants in the world are awarded between 1 and 3 stars. Well, this year, the Michelin Guide introduced a new distinction for hotels. It's the Michelin Keys, and a hotel in this province has made the grade in a big way. The Fogo Island Inn is one of only 2 hotels in the country to receive 3 Michelin Keys. And joining me now is the manager of the inn, Amanda Decker-Penton. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for having me, Carolyn.
So Michelin stars have been around for a long time, and anyone who's seen TV shows like The Bear know how big of a deal it is to get even 1 star. And the Michelin Key is like the hotel equivalent of the star. Fogo Island Inn was awarded 3 of them. That's the highest rating possible. How did you react when you found out?
Well, I would say there was some tears and a whole lot of hugging happened here when we did know that we were going to receive the 3 Michelin Key distinction from the Michelin Guide. It was an amazing day.
What does it take to get a Michelin Key, or in this case, 3 keys? Can you walk us through how it works?
Well, it's not something that we can ask for, or it's not something that you can vote on, like lots of awards and recognitions are. It's something that is very prestigious, and I think prestigious because you really are awarded it. There's no way for you to get it without putting in the hard work and really, being judged excellent. So it's a mystery person to your property. You don't know they're coming. You don't even know if you're on the list to be judged. And they come to your property. Like any regular guest, they can come in any form. They can be a single person, a couple, a family, that can be anybody. And they just experience what every other guest experiences, and they judge you blankly on that.
And now that you think back, do you know now who it might have been who was there from the Michelin Guide? Because you wouldn't know at the time, but when you think back now, you're like, I wonder if that was the person who was there from the Michelin Guide.
I think we all have different ideas who we think it might have been, but like I say to our team, almost on the daily, it's everybody who walks through our door is a guest and is treated with the same care, love, and attention. So it wouldn't have mattered if we knew who he or she was anyway.
And there are some really high-end hotels in Canada that got just 1 or 2 keys. 8 hotels were awarded 2 keys. 23 hotels got 1 key. What is it about the Fogo Island Inn that impressed them so much that it received 3 keys?
Specifically Fogo Island Inn, I think it's our commitment to place and celebrating that place, this specific place, with commitment to sustainability, respect for nature and culture. And it's all those things that we hold dear in our way of operating and our way of working every day. It's really just that genuine way of practicing hospitality in the form of care.
Mm-hmm. And I found it interesting that the only other hotel to get 3 keys is in the wilderness in Tofino, only accessible by boat or seaplane, isolated, kind of like the Fogo Island Inn. How much of a role do you think that the uniqueness of the isolation played in this?
I don't know, because there's some pretty spectacular, 3-keyed and 1 and 2-keyed Michelin keyed places all over the world that are in cities and in different places. So I don't know. I've been kind of thinking about what that role has played as well. And I think Canada celebrates remote and celebrates nature, and Newfoundland and Labrador, and of course the West Coast, both of us have that in spades. So maybe that's more of what played into it.
And the inn caters, of course, to more of an upscale clientele. What does this kind of recognition mean for, I guess, spreading the word about the hotel and what it has to offer?
Well, I think every award and every accolade that we and all of Newfoundland and Labrador can bring to Newfoundland and Labrador is very good wind. Very good wind that it's blowing us in terms of getting us out on the world stage. You know, recognition for doing what we do is just a really great way to say, keep doing what you're doing. Don't stop doing what you're doing, just keep doing it better every single day. So I'm super proud. I can't say how honored I am to be able to bring and be part of a team that can help bring 3 Michelin keys to Newfoundland and Labrador is probably one of the greatest honors of my life.
Well, Amanda Decker-Penton, congratulations for this honor and distinction. Thank you so much for telling us about it.
You are very welcome.
And if you're wondering what a 3-key Michelin experience at the Fogo Island Inn might set you back, we paged through the guide to see for ourselves. A one-night stay at the inn's cheapest room runs $2,700. So you might want to start saving. Stay with us. More news and weather still to come. shirking safety regulations, making risky and cost-cutting moves. We've been following the ongoing inquiry into the Titan tragedy for the last week on Here and Now. It's still underway in South Carolina, led by the American Coast Guard. Well, today, OceanGate's co-founder took the stand to talk about the business and strategy behind the Titan submersible, how certain decisions were made, like giving the title of mission specialist to people who were paying customers. We also heard about some of Titan's earlier testing.
One of the thoughts that we had at one point was, well, under an ORV, one of the categories that's allowed to be in the sub are owners of the subs. So we actually thought about, at one point, I don't think we ended up doing this, but we actually toyed with the idea of giving every mission specialist a share of ownership in the company. One of the other categories of people that could be in the sub were crew. And so we actually thought about, well, what if we pay crew members, mission specialists, and maybe we pay them $1? It's consideration. What we ended up defaulting to was the last category, which was researchers. And researchers within the ORV, if I remember correctly, was defined broadly enough that it could include people who were in training and people who were learning or people who were assisting a researcher. And ultimately, I think that's what we ended up defaulting to. And that's the part of the ORV that we ended up going through.
Can you describe the third scale model testing?
We would normally do an AM session and a PM session. So we would do a 4-hour test profile in the morning, and then after lunch we would do another 4-hour test. And I believe it was in the PM session that we got to, and I can't remember the exact depth, but it was probably around 2,800 meters. And all of a sudden we could see the strain start to move, and we could see the AE just go nuts, and then followed by an ear-splitting bang that was ringing in the ears, and pretty catastrophic failure. When we brought the third scale model out of the test chamber, we had it enclosed in a Teflon bag to keep the shards of carbon fiber from damaging their test facility. And what had happened was that it had imploded inwards, and it had pulled that bag inside the third scale model. It was kind of interesting.
We have a CBC News exclusive now. Michael Kovrig, who spent 1,019 days in Chinese detention, is telling his story for the first time. He was detained along with another Canadian, Michael Spavor. The move by Beijing was seen as retaliation after a Chinese tech executive was arrested in Canada at the request of the U.S. Chief Correspondent Adrian Arsenault has more.
When you're detained, you're in a system that is trying to convince you you're a bad man, you're a prisoner, you're a hostage.
You're a spy.
Exactly.
Michael Kovrig is home and safe, but he knows he's not really free from that infuriating cloud of suspicion some see around him.
It hurt for a range of reasons. First of all, it's not true. I've never been a spy of any kind. I was a foreign service officer, a diplomat. The kind of work I do requires complete transparency, and it requires trust.
Curiously, when Meng Wanzhou, the Huawei executive, was arrested in Vancouver at the behest of Washington, it was Kovrig people around the world turned to for analysis on what China might do next. Did it occur to you that they might grab some Canadians?
I analyzed it, I think, a little too rationally, thinking that there's no point in doing something to Canada because it's not Canada's decision ultimately.
He and his partner were having that very discussion after dinner in Beijing a few days after Meng's arrest, when he says masked men dragged him into a car.
They pulled my partner, who at the time was 6 months pregnant, away from me. We made eye contact for a split second, and I just tried to, be safe, take care of yourself. I will get out of this one day, but I don't know when I'll ever see you again.
His child was 2.5 years old when he finally saw her for the first time.
I'll never forget that sense of wonder, of everything being new and wonderful again, and pushing my daughter on a swing and her saying to her mother, "Mommy, I'm so happy."
He too is finding happiness and freedom again, which gives him the space to consider a hard question. Could Canada have done more?
The Canadian government was not prepared. I think somewhat different approaches and a quicker understanding of the problems would have led to hopefully a faster resolution. But let's not pretend that it was easy.
Michael Kovrig has more to say about who's to blame, who to thank, and how he coped. He says he's on a bit of a gratitude tour because to be free is something he will never take for granted. Adrienne Arsenault, CBC News, Toronto.
Just an incredible story. You can catch the full interview, Captive in China, Michael Kovrig's 1,019 Days. That's tonight on The National at 11:30 Island time, a half hour earlier in most parts of Labrador. That's on CBC TV. You can also see it right now on The National's YouTube page. Well, over the weekend, the Mid-Autumn Festival brought together people on the Avalon to celebrate the moon. As you're about to hear, it's all about celebrating the moon goddess, a Chinese story of sacrifice and coming together as a community.
My name is Francis Tam. I'm the president of the Chinese Association. We come together and we share the tradition of, honoring the moon and telling stories of the moon goddess, right, Chang'e, and the story, between her and her husband, and how the sacrifice she had to make, right, so that, she could save her husband, but they are now apart, right? So every year we honor her by celebrating the Moon Festival. We have family gatherings, we eat moon cakes, we participate in lantern festivals. If you see behind me, these are called lantern riddles, right? And people get prizes if you can get so many right.
So just like the New Year event, we want to gather more people together here, share our Chinese culture with everyone in Newfoundland, let them say that what we would do normally Mid-Autumn Festival, like tasting moon cakes for different flavors, and we're also making their own cakes for DIY session over there as well. Yeah, we just try to share this with everyone and let them see how special this is and how different this is from the traditional Canadian festivals.
Especially let a lot of young kids never experience the traditional Chinese moon festival. Let them have the experience as what we had when we were kids.
Since I've been president, we've been trying different ideas and just trying different ways to reach out to the community, right? We didn't want to always be such a formal group, right? We want to be as public as we can, and we want to engage with the families, especially the new families since COVID, right? They didn't know a lot of people in the community. This is a way for them to make friends and connections, their kids to make some friends. So that would be a great bridge that I'm hoping to create for future CNL, executive team that will take over.
Looks like a nice event. And if you're wondering, like I did, why it's called the Mid-Autumn Festival, considering autumn began
just started
yesterday, that's of course for us, but it's held on the 15th day of the 8th month of the Chinese calendar with a full moon at night. So that's mid-September to early October in their calendars.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And I don't know, I'm already thinking about next summer. I guess all gardeners kind of think ahead to next summer, and I'm earlier in the show I made a note in my phone to get some sunflowers and put faces on them.
Such a great idea.
That photo that you showed earlier, I just thought was so whimsical and adorable. So I'd like to do that next year.
Yeah, I mean, sunflowers are, we had some beautiful sunflowers out here too.
Yeah.
See how big they were?
They're spectacular.
But then you add the faces and they just take on a whole
What other
new...
flowers can you put faces on, I wonder?
Daisies.
All right, so let's look at the long-range forecast. Things are cooling down, like you've talked about. How are things looking later on in the week?
Yeah, cooling down in a sense that cooler than we have been seeing. It's been fairly warm for most of September, in fact, and it is going to be pretty warm up across Labrador compared to what it should be for this time of year. So let's take a look at what's going on. So that area of low pressure is still going to stick around, although it's going to loosen its grip on the province as we head through into Wednesday. But most of us along the northeast coast will still see we'll still see the effects from this area of low pressure. So in fact, winds will shift a little bit more. So you can even expect some more periods of drizzle, as well as some foggy periods as well in there, especially towards the coast. Now, up across Labrador, pretty decent. We're looking at some sunshine through the afternoon at times. Some cloud cover still in the mix there, here and there, but overall, the best weather really will be for Labrador. Same thing for the northern peninsula, west coast of the island, and even along southern areas of the island as well. Our daytime highs are going to stay chilly, though, only around 12 to 14 degrees along the northeast coast as you head towards The west and the south, your temperatures will be in the mid to upper 20s. And take a look at the temperatures up across Labrador. 20 degrees in Lab City for Wednesday. Your daytime highs around this time of year should be sitting around 8 degrees. So quite the difference in temperatures. That is the case towards the north coast, through central areas of Labrador, and even along the Strait, sitting at around 10 degrees. Now you're more where you should be sitting, but it's still pretty nice with some sunshine expected through your Wednesday. As we head into Thursday, again, this area of low pressure sticking around. Expect periods of drizzle and rain and even some foggy patches as well. Again, winds will be out of the northeast for most of us, so that will keep the northern peninsula, west coast still under some fairly sunny skies. We're looking at that towards the coast of Labrador as well, although clouds will start to move in for Lab West and also bring the potential for some showers right along with it. So keep that in mind as you head towards your Thursday. Temperatures still around 19 degrees in Happy Valley, Goose Bay, and then temperatures across the island will sit between 12 and 16 degrees through the day. Areas in central will see 14 to 15. Your long range forecast, it doesn't look great. Still some cloud cover, still some drizzle. And also, again, not ruling out the chance of some shower or some sun in here, but it just won't be the dominant weather in the forecast. Overall, our daytime highs will sit between 12 to 13 degrees, so you're not really seeing too much in the way of movement. Temperatures through central and western Newfoundland similar. Best weather on the west coast as per usual. And then for Labrador, really lovely stretch of weather there for you. And that's the case for western Labrador, although you are looking at some showers, like I said, as we get into the Thursday time frame. Our photo is a dramatic moody sky over Brigus there. Rob shared this lovely shot. I love when we get some dramatic photos. The clouds tell us such a story. Thank you for that. If you have any weather photos, you can send them to nlphotos@cbc.ca.
Yeah, those are some dense clouds for sure. Beautiful, beautiful shot. It looks like the nice weather that was in western Labrador last week is now in eastern.
That's right.
Because now it looks like they're having the nice week.
Beautiful week of weather, yeah. I can't complain about that, that's for sure. Not as we're just falling into fall.
Yep, falling into fall, yes. All right, well, that's it for us. Thank you so much for spending part of your evening with us.
Good night.